And I know that one of the things that you often, so getting ready to plan, one of the things that often comes up is, all right, sorry guys. Let me do something here again. So one of the things that I often see is that your districts don't have the roles that they need in order to be able to even do the plans. So when you're out in the districts, and especially when you have new coordinators or new superintendents, they must have, in order to be able at the building level or at the district level. So if principals are given the permission from their district to be able to, then they're assigned at the principal, and to be able to have data entry and data view planning, then they're going to be able to do their building plans and their building needs assessment. If, and then for the district level, they need to be able to have the data entry planning and the data view planning for the district for their role. It's similar to, for those of you that have been around for a while, what we had to do with decision framework, so that principals were able to go in and work and do the decision framework for their buildings. So the process, everything begins with the needs assessment, and everything moves forward from that needs assessment. So it's not only going to be the needs assessment is going to feed the comprehensive plan or their plan, but it also is going to feed their CCIP federal applications, funds for the applications. Now, we may not see that as much this year, but in the future, that is the plan that we're going with, that eventually their needs assessment is going to become the foundation for their one plan and for how they determine to spend their funds to meet those goals that they've established in their plan. So I'm going to give you a little bit about timelines. So for this year, it's cohort 1, and this is what really gets very confusing. So they are right now planning for their FY22 plan. They will begin their planning, though, for FY22 and FY21 and 22. So really, they begin it in FY21. It's federal funding year, FY22. I'm sorry, they're going to begin their plan in FY 2021 for their FY22 federal plan. And so federal is always like a year, it's the second half of whatever that next year is. And I think that's part of what becomes a little bit confusing for everyone. So when we're talking about cohort 2, they are going to begin their planning in FY21 and 22 for their FY23 plan, which is really in year 22 and 23. And then for cohort 3 districts, They will begin their planning then in FY 21 and 22, which will be the year after, for their FY 24 plan, which will really be in FY 23 and FY 24. And I know that's as clear as mud, but it's very hard to keep that all straight, especially when we talk about the one needs assessment. It's the FY 21 one needs assessment, and that's because they actually are doing it they begin it in FY 21 or FY 2021 is when they start doing it. So now for the pilot districts, what are we doing with them? Because their 3-year cycle will not come around until they'll start working on it in FY 22 and 23. They'll start a new needs assessment that January. So it'll be like January 2023 for their FY 24 plan. What are they doing until then? Their plan is going to live in the CCIP in FY 21. So for the next several years, in order to be able to go to their plan, you actually have to go back in the planning tool until FY 21. Now, hopefully, sometime in the next 3-year process, we'll have a new system that will be able to transfer this all over. And that's not going to be the case for the districts once we get into the new system. The plan will follow them through the 3-year process. But right now, the planning tool doesn't have that type of capability. So if you have pilot districts who are asking you about their plan, they do not have to do a plan this year or a needs assessment. They can go back into their FY 21 plan and they can do revisions. If they want to do a new goal or new strategies, they can go back into their needs assessment, their one needs assessment, and select new priorities and feed those to the CCIP. They're living within that year in which they did their plan and their planning tool became active. So another question that we're often getting is, well, what is required? And we do have a school labels flowchart now. So if you look, and I'll show you where you can find this. Some of you probably already have a copy of it. But all of the components have now been moved off the planning tool. And when they get into the planning tool, they're not even going to see those tabs any longer. They're no longer going to be available for them to even do component linkages. So who has to do what? Who has to do a plan? Who has to do a needs assessment? That school labels flowchart can do that very, very easily. I would love to be able to see it, put it in present, and I think maybe I might be able to now because I don't think I have slides that are recorded. So let me see. How's that? All right, so if they are a district that has their intense, their ADC, their moderate DF, their a moderate C, independent with watch, whatever they have to do a plan. Everybody has to do a plan and has to do the one needs assessment. because they're receiving federal funds. And it's a requirement of all federal funds that there be a plan and a needs assessment. Now, for the buildings, which buildings have to do a plan? You would have any building that has a label besides independent. So if they're priority, if they're focus, if they have a watch label with their independent, they have to do a plan. And any building that is a school-wide Title I building, they have to have a plan, because with school-wide Title I, you're using your school-wide Title I for a building-wide improvements. So you're not identifying specific students any longer. You're identifying building-wide improvements and how you're going to target those funds in specific areas in the building to make improvements in that building, whether you're going to target it towards your English language arts, your math, your climate in the building, whatever. So they have to have a plan for that because they're doing building-wide improvements. Components are all embedded within the plan. And we do have a document that is in the document library that will be shared with you that shows where all the old components were that they were required to do in the plan, where it's now located in our process. Because some of the components are just automatically embedded within the process, such as they have to have a comprehensive needs assessment, or the state has to approve their plans. Those are embedded in the process. But some of them are very specific. For example, how are they identifying their at-risk students that are not meeting their state's challenging academic standards? Those are in the plan in questions that we have embedded within the plan. And those are some of those required questions that we have now that they answer. So in this document that you're going to see, it's going to show in Elementary Secondary Education Act, there are requirements that all LEA plans need to address. There are also requirements for any building that's a Title I school-wide building that they need to make sure that they've addressed within their planning process. And then there's also the requirement for those who are district improvement or they're in school improvement. All of this information is on this document that will be provided to not only you, but to districts, because we have some coordinators in our district that get a little nervous that they're not doing their linkages, and they want to know where they're managing those components then. Where are they addressed within their plan? So we are recommending a cycle for planning now that's really very different from what districts have been doing and the direction that they had been provided in the past. Before, it was always the district drives all the improvement plans. But we're really recommending a direction that really, and even here, these arrows aren't necessarily correct. That's really going back and forth between district and the building. We recommend that the buildings begin with their improvement plan, with the needs assessment. They would be able to then, if they go in and they complete their needs assessment first, then the districts can go in and they can look at the building report that's in the needs assessment. And I'm going to show you here in a second how you can get to that building report. It should be available next week, probably around Wednesday. It went into QA last night. I'm very excited about it. It's going to give you a lot of resources at your fingertips that you can use at the district level and at the building level. So our recommendation is that the district has their buildings do their needs assessment first, then the district reviews those building reports, because it will pull all that information together for them. What are the root causes and the priority needs that the buildings have identified? It will also let the building know the progress of their buildings in completing their needs assessment. They can go in there and see who's done, who hasn't started, where everyone is in the progress, as well as SSTs can do that as well. Once the buildings have completed their needs assessment and the district has done a review, then we recommend that the district goes in and they complete their one needs assessment and they identify their priority needs for the district, so that they can provide the type of support to the buildings that the buildings need. Because any of us that have worked in schools and worked in districts know that the closer you can get to the child and the adults who are actually working with the children, the more impact you're going to have. So we want the districts to support the buildings in addressing the needs that they have in those buildings, so that they're actually then, because the buildings results are what really feeds the district's overall results. So if you want to see your district improve, you really do have to see improvements occurring at the building level. So the new One Needs Assessment report is available now in your needs assessment. And well, not now, it'll be available next week. When you go in, you're going to be able to go in and you're going to see now an icon that will say report. So, and this is going to then allow them to, you to be able to go in and you can do a search in here by your SST region to see where all of the districts and the buildings are in the process. You can also go in here and then look at individual districts to see where they are in the process. And you can run reports the same as what the district and the building does. Okay. So we have a question from Linda. If we have all these buildings doing their own needs assessment and priority needs, could we end up with a massive amount of disconnected priority needs? You could, especially if you have a district that's not very connected with their buildings. Of course, before, often we had goals that weren't even, didn't even meet the needs of what the buildings had in them. And so buildings didn't take any ownership. So how are they supposed to support all those different needs? By really being very clear about what their priorities are and selecting the top priorities, because the district then will select the priority needs overall. And we'll get here later on, I'll show you where then it goes back and it asks the buildings, how does your need support the district's needs? So I see we already have some questions that are already been here. So this is where we can't control those things out in the district. Those are things that the district leadership needs to be able to work with their buildings, and the buildings need to be able to work with their district leadership. And when you end up with a district that has buildings all over the place and their priority needs aren't aligned at all, there is a leadership problem then overall. If you have so many priority needs within the district that you're not able to to figure out how you're going to support them all, those are issues within the district. And that's something that right there tells you that you need to really probably look at a leadership goal at the district level. So no, the building's information does not populate into the district's plan. The building's information, their priority needs and their root causes will be available in that needs assessment report. Will be available in the needs assessment so that districts can print off that report and they can look at what their buildings have all selected. And if you end up as a district and you see that your priority needs are all over the place, that's a good time too to have conversations with those building principals, even about what they ended up selecting as their priorities. So the district plan. The one needs assessment drives the plan at the district level. And I can't stress how important this page is to the development of the district plan. They need to be able to go in and really narrow down their priorities to priorities that will pull in as many of the building's needs that they have seen. And typically at the district level, your priorities, your goals are at a larger topic area. For example, you may say at the district level, your goal is going to be English language arts, but it may be a K through 12 English language arts goal. However, at the building level, their goal may be nonfiction, informational text in literacy. Could actually be what they've written as their SMART goal. Does that feed into the district's ELA goal? Yes. It would support their overall ELA goal because they've identified in their area, which reading falls underneath ELA, they have a problem with reading using informational text in the elementary building. And they really want to work on increasing their use and improving their students' reading of informational text over the next 3 years and incorporating that into their curriculum. So is that going to affect the district's ELA results? Certainly. But what they need to make sure they do when they're on this page is not only say, okay, which of these priority needs are going to have at the district level the biggest impact and also the ripple effect that we can provide the support that our buildings are needing, but also based on what we've read in the root causes, what are the different topics or the different things that we need to address to really help move the needle within this priority need. And that's where that selection of the other improvement areas becomes very important. Last year, in the pilot districts, we saw where they may have selected just one other improvement area. They really want to think about, which improvement areas they're going to address, whether it's going to be curriculum and instruction, professional capital, fiscal management. And I've seen several needs assessments already that have identified fiscal issues as an improvement area for some the buildings have. And some of the districts may see that. They're going to see, well, they're saying that they need more resources provided at the building level for curriculum and for materials for students. That's good feedback to the district level, especially to those who are in the fiscal office, who are often the ones driving the budgets. So this page, I can't stress how important it is. So once they complete that page, they're going to send this to the planning tool. And when it goes over to the planning tool, each one of those that they've selected as the priority need will become the goal title in the planning tool. Their improvement area in which the priority need fell in or was under is going to become their first strategy. All the additional improvement areas that they've selected there on that right-hand side will become then the additional strategies at the building plan, at the district plan. So it's going to look like this. For this district, they selected English language arts as a priority need. And they had 4 strategies that they had selected here in addition. Well, what if, now we all know that curriculum instruction and assessment is a very large strategy. What if they want another curriculum instruction and assessment strategy? They can still create another strategy underneath any of those 8 areas. They can add a 5th strategy for curriculum instruction and assessment, and perhaps this one is going to be around instruction. The first one was around standards and assessment alignment. There you go, Sherry. Okay. So what do they have to do now to create their goals? When they go into the planning tool and they begin writing their goals, 2 areas are going to be grayed out for them. They're not going to be able to edit those areas. They're going to write their SMART goal and their student measures and their adult measures in the goal. If they want to make changes to their root cause or to their SMART goal itself, they have to go back into the one needs assessment and make those changes there and then resend it to the CCIP. Because everything is what we want them to build everything from their needs assessment. So we want them to go back to the needs assessment if they're going to be making any changes to the needs assessment. Once they have completed their goals, they can start working on their strategies. And the only thing in their strategies at the district level, they have 2 things that they need to do. First, all we have is a title or the topic for their strategy. This one's community family engagement. They really need to describe to us what is that strategy. What is it that they're going to do in community family engagement? And we ask them to tell us, what are you doing? Who is doing it? When are you doing it? Where? How are you doing this? It really should describe clearly so that everyone can clearly understand what's being done. Finally, we've added this year where they can identify student subgroups that may be a particular focus for this strategy. So if the district has a subgroup such as students with disabilities, or they have a large EL population, and they know that they really need to focus on their EL population for community family engagement and their students with disabilities, and maybe even provide some parent activities are just specific for those parents, they're going to identify them here. Once they've done that and they've created all of their their strategies, then they're going to go in and they're going to add their action steps. So there is no pre-population on the action steps. It will be, they'll write their title, their description. They can put in a benchmark measure if they want. It is not required. And one thing that we are recommending that they do is that they click the box here and add their action steps to the bank. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the action steps bank here a little bit later when we get into the building plans. Okay, so will there be a new planning tool for the one plan? Yes. And as soon as right now, we're still in the RFP process. And as soon as we get a vendor on, as a matter of fact, the planning tool will be the first thing that will be created. The one needs assessment, and what we have in the one needs assessment we'll use for a little while we create the other pieces that really do need complete updates and overhaul. And this is one. I mean, it's 20 years old, and we do what we can with it, but it's not going to do everything that we really want it to be able to do. The next question that I have is, what if the district decides to change something in the priority needs after they've started working in the CCIP? It will change whatever they changed in the one needs assessment. So if they go back and they change their root cause and their title, or they change and they change an improvement area, it will actually add that improvement area or take one away. They'll lose a strategy if they uncheck it even. So it's going to, whatever they do in the one needs assessment and then they resend it, it'll change it to that. It'll replace it. So if they change a goal and they take another priority need and they uncheck it, it's no longer a priority need, then that will not show up as a goal any longer until then. And Tracy, I don't know when it's going to be available. I mean, we don't even have the vendor yet, so it'll be, I would imagine it's going to be a couple more years. Hopefully by the time the pilots and cohort 3 come on, we'll be able to migrate into the new system, but I don't know yet. It's not going to be for a while. So, all right, building plans. Any other questions about what districts will need to do in their district plan?
Did you have a slide for the action steps?
I have some in the building plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. All right, so what are the building plans? What are they going to be doing? So they're same as the district. This page is very important for them. They really need to narrow down to what are their priorities, which of these are going to have the biggest impact on really turning things around or helping us make improvements in our building. And what areas or topics do we need to address in order to address this need based on our root cause analysis? Okay. So their priority need will go into the building's goal for their SMART goal. Their improvement areas will go into the title for their strategies. And then the building plans are to support the district's plan as well. However, they could have a priority need that doesn't really align with any of the district's goals or priority needs. That's okay if the district says it's okay. Because in the end, it is the district that's going to sign off and approve all of the plans before they can submit the plan to the funding application. So in the building goals, they have the same thing. They are grayed out in their SMART goal in their root cause. If they're actually going to make a goal change, they have to go into the next, back into the needs assessment to do it. They need to write a SMART goal, and then they need to write their student measures and their adult measures. And the last thing they need to do then is identify which of the district goals this goal supports. So this is what is very key. And it'll show up then in the building plan underneath the building goal. The district goal will show up actually in the building plan. For adding a strategy, it's very similar to what the district has to do then. The districts, their strategy title is there, it's grayed out. They still need to describe for their strategy, what are they doing? Who, what, when, where, how. It should be very specific for the building. And they also can identify at their building who are their student subgroups, because you could have buildings that, you know, maybe this building has a high population of homeless students, or they could have a lot of gifted students at this building, whereas the other buildings don't have very many gifted students in there, depending on, you know, the community in which, or their neighborhoods that they're serving. And then finally, you have the action step bank. Okay, so the action step bank is where the action steps, they can add their title and their description, or they have other options that they can do. One is the action step bank. And I do want to talk a little bit about the action step bank. And I'm going to go in there here in a little bit and show you where it's at and what are the different things that we want districts to be able to do with it. But they can actually go in, and in the goal, in the action step, there's a drop down that says recommended action steps, and they could select action steps that the district has. Another option, here's a sample of what the action step bank looks like. And right now, I would say that in most of your districts, the bank looks pretty messy, unless they went in last year and they cleaned them up. Another option is that, well, it didn't come out very well, is that we have a copy function. And I'm going to show you where the copy function is, but they can actually go in and they can copy from the district or from other buildings, even in the district, even from their own building. And let's say they have an action step that they're doing at several, they're doing that same action step, but it's addressing more than one goal or in more than one strategy in their plan. They can actually go in and select that goal and that strategy. Or they can go back to the district plan and select that.
The timelines are modified from previous.
So our timelines for cohort 1, the one needs assessment has been released. They should be right now working on their plans. Those plans are not, this here it says March 31st. As of last Friday, there was a meeting with the team, and the plan due date has been extended to April the 30th this year for districts. So districts and buildings have till April the 30th to finish their needs assessment and their plan. And that went out in our CCIP note yesterday for 61. But it will also, we will have that in the trainings that we provide to the districts starting next week, or no, 2 weeks from now, our trainings. We will start reviewing them in May then. The different districts or different offices will begin reviewing. Are there any questions about this timeline? Cohorts 2 and 3 have the same timeline that they've always had. Their needs assessment and their plans are due by June the 30th.
Years as we start the interoffice program review of the one plan.
Scott, you sound good.
Letter A's, man.
All right. So some of the resources that we're going to go over now and I'm going to share with you is School Labels Flowchart. I've already shared that with you. The guidebook for the districts on the review process, as well as a link that will be that's going to be available for which offices are reviewing each of the district's plans. Rubric, the training dates, and then the document library and CCIP. Everything is going to be available in the doc library, as well as I know many of these things will be available on our webpage, the Office of Federal Programs webpage, and on the Ed Steps. So we'll have them in multiple places where people should be able to and can find them. Okay, I'm going to move over now into the system and do some navigating and show you where some of these things are and how they work. The guidebook's going to be available for you today, Tracy. So you will have it today, and I'm going to provide it to all of you so you'll be able to go in and get it. So we'll put it here in the chat in a little bit. You can download it, and then I'll send it to Elizabeth also so she can send it out to everyone, all the SSTs. So the first thing I want to do is go in and show you the report and show you what it looks like. And this I just got to see this and work with it last night at 3:30. So this is very new. But I think that it's going to be extremely helpful for everyone. So I'm going to go into the districts needs assessment. Hey, Nanette, your mic came on, Nanette. Did you have a question? Okay. So if you can see up here, you notice that there is now that new report, and you can go to needs assessment analysis. Now we're going in from the district view. Once it becomes available, you're going to actually be able to go in from your state support team view. So Columbus City's not going to be able to do everything that you're going to be able to do with all of it. But right now, the overall status page is going to show you exactly where everyone is. You can see how many have started, how many haven't, how many are required. This participation flag tells you how many are required to do it. Okay. So down here at the bottom are tabs. And these tabs are the things that you're going to use then to run your report. So if you select the root cause analysis tab, it's going to show you all the priority needs that have been selected so far. Within the district. You can scroll down here and you can see actually even at who has selected it, those priority needs. You can even filter it. Let's say that you want to know just about one specific area. Let's say attendance. It's going to give you a report. Right now we only have Columbus City over here. Let me go back. Maybe I need to select all. The other report that you can see is improvement areas and priority needs report. So it's going to disseminate it even that way, and you can go by each building. How many priority needs there were, how many of them had, what are the improvement areas that they've selected. So let's say if you wanted to go, and we have all of them here, and I wanted to see, well, for special populations, I clicked on it, it's showing me all the different special populations then have been selected here. If I went here and just selected that one area, it's going to show me that it all went underneath these areas here. So it's pretty good. And then you have question details even. Well, it'll even tell you who started their questions, who hasn't, where they are, what questions they have to do yet. So you can actually go in and see for a building specifically what questions it has. So there's going to be the print. You can create a PDF of these reports once you Once you are able to create them, you can create them into a PDF. I think this one is just to do a full screen. You can download the reports. They're adding information tiles to explain what each of the reports will show, and then there's a help screen here. This is scheduled to open up next Wednesday, or go out and be pushed out next Wednesday. So now you hopefully you've been around ODE long enough. That's our date. So I would say starting next Wednesday, go in and look to see if they've been able to push it out yet, because we never know when suddenly, in the development, we found a bug that wasn't working and they had to go back in and fix it. So it's going to delay it a day. But I would say starting next Wednesday, you can begin going in and looking and seeing where your districts are in the needs assessment. And you can also see what are the priority needs that the district is selecting and the buildings are selecting. That's going to give you, if you see things that are, don't look like they're going to be lining up, that's also going to give you an opportunity to step in and say, hey, let me see what I can do here to help the district in the building. This is a quick preview. It just was available to us last night, so I'm sharing it with you today just because I know that this is something that is going to be extremely helpful for you this year as we move forward in the process. And I will try to answer if you have any questions about this part so far. All right, good. I want to show you action step bank items, action step bank, and how you manage and work with districts on their action step banks. And I also want to show you the copy function. So if we have a question about if a district wants to have just a single goal that's systemic in nature and design, would that be acceptable? Even if they use into the planning tool, I would recommend that they go back and they narrowed that down to their one priority. They cannot add goals. You can't add goals at the planning tool area. You can only add goals from the needs assessment. So if they're only going to have one goal, and that's certainly a district decision to do that, especially, for some of these districts, that's their capacity with everything going on. And if they're, an independent district, who are we to say whatever they're doing, they're doing well so far. But most of us know that there are things there that they could work on, but it's not something that's going to come out through the report card data. So they need to narrow it down to just which one of those priority needs. And if none of their priority needs is going to address their systemic, then I recommend they go back into the needs assessment and look at those areas that really are more systemic type areas, such as leadership, operations, those larger areas that might be able to pull in then those other priority needs and address them. Because what we said, you want to pick the priority need that's going to have the greatest impact. And it's also going to have the ripple effect on addressing some of your other needs. Okay. Should literacy and math goals be separated, or could a district do one overarching goal for both? It depends on what they select. Teaching, if they select teaching as a priority, then teaching would be overarching. It could address multiple subject areas. If their priority need is improving overall teaching in the building. So it really depends on what they select as their priority need. And if they're wanting to have one goal, then they need to go back in and look at some of those other areas. Let's say, yeah, we need to improve in ELA and math, but we really know that our problem might be, curriculum alignment, or it may be it's not ELA and math isn't really, that's the symptom of instructional issues, or it's a symptom of problems with assessments that don't have enough rigor. Okay, so if those, you've got to be able to figure out what is the overarching area that's going to really narrow down their focus, because ELA is pretty broad, and really they may be better off to select instruction or another area, and we're just going to work on this because everyone's going to be working on instruction then in the building, or everyone's going to be working on assessments and alignment of assessments. Okay. That answer, I hope that kind of answered your question there. All right, I'm going to go in now and I'm going to show you the action step bank and managing the action step bank. And I'm going to tell you right now, the action step bank has been very neglected. It has been a tool that's available, but it hasn't been a tool that's really been utilized very well. Some of our larger districts do use it. However, they never clean out the junk room, is what it is. So everything just keeps getting thrown in there, but nobody's ever taken anything out of it. So you thought the 20-year plans were bad. Oh, the action step bank is even worse. Okay, so we're now into the CCIP, and they do need to make sure they change to the 2022. You'll notice there is no, they can't copy the plan any longer when they get in here. That's no longer a link that's working or available for them. When you go into the district agency plan, you can see now that they have, here's their 4 goals. Of course, somebody's been playing to see if something will work there. They've been testing. So really they only have 3 goals here. The action step bank, I just want to expand one goal so you can see that. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger because I don't know about the rest of you, but there we go. All right, so to get to the action step bank, if you go up to planning, you can see a flyout there. And the action step bank is located right there. Is this better, Linda? Or do you want me to make it bigger? Okay, good. Here's all the items that Columbus City has in their action step right now. What I do recommend is for districts to really start cleaning out their action step bank. There's several things that they can do. They can go in and just delete everything right now, just delete it. Or they can actually go in and edit the action steps that they have there and then delete the ones they don't. So if they wanted to edit, they would just click on the title as they normally do. And then they can add the information here. And there's two ways that they can add action steps to the bank. They can create their action step items here. So they could go in here before, they know what their action steps are going to be, and they can add all their action steps and then just select them and put them into their plan, or they can actually write them in the plan and then click that box that I showed you to add them then to the action step bank. This icon here, which if you click on it, allows buildings to be able then to pull from the district's action steps to the building's action steps. So before, whether the district had yes or no here determined whether or not the buildings would be able to do that. And often buildings didn't realize or that buildings would be able to create their own action steps or not. Often buildings didn't realize that they had that clicked, and then districts were trying to add action steps and they weren't able to. So we had to go in and fix it here for them. This has been disabled. So buildings are going to be able to do both. They're going to be able to select from the district's action step bank or create their own action steps. So we're trying to give as much flexibility this year as we can. And of course, something, this is something we will look at every year. How is this working? Because right now we're in, the protocol for development of the one plan. And the feedback that we get from everyone on all of these pieces and the flexibility that we're providing is going to help us then when the vendor comes on and we start building that plan, that system for the one plan, so that we know all the different things and bells and whistles we want it to be able to do. So again, to get to the action step bank, you're going to go to planning, and in the flyout window, it's going to show you the action step bank. If you want to, if the district, they can add their action steps here, or they can add the action steps to the bank. And I'll show you where that is again. When they create an action step, they would click this box here and it would populate that bank with all of this information in it as well. So if somebody selects this action step for their action step, it's going to populate that over everything that's written here is going to populate. Now, they can edit it then at the building level. So let's say they want to add things, or maybe the district says the district will and they want to put building will. They'll be able to go in and edit it, but the majority of it will be copied then over into it. So for the building then, to be able to select from the action step bank, I'm going to go into a buildings plan. And when you go to create action step, the recommended action step is actually the action step bank. So they can go through the titles, all the titles that are on the action step. They can select that action step and it's going to populate it and it's going to save it then underneath the building's plan. Here it is. If they want to edit it, then they can go in and they can edit, because it's not like when it was pulled over from the needs assessment that they couldn't edit. Okay. So another function so that's the action step bank. So if you can do anything with your districts, please encourage them to clean up that action step bank. It's probably 20 years old, just like everything else that's been in the system. I want to talk to you a little bit about the copy function. Districts and buildings can copy. Okay, so Nancy asked if the pilot districts, will theirs copy over into this year? No. Do they have to go back and copy everything over? No. Their plan will live in FY21 and it will be good for 3 years. So they would go back into FY21 to make any changes to their plan. If they want to add a goal or they want to add additional strategies, they would go back into their needs assessment, and their access is only going to be to last year's needs assessment. When they go in, they're going to see their needs assessment from last year to edit, and they can select another priority need and select additional strategies there. Okay. So the copy function, there's a copy function at the strategy level and there's a copy function at the district level. So if you select copy, it's going to ask them for what year, and they can copy a strategy. Let's say that they have a strategy that they've already done in instruction in one goal, and they want that same strategy then to be added to the other goal. So we're going to copy this strategy that I just selected, operations, and I'm going to add it over into engagement. And you do copy, and it'll actually add then that strategy as well underneath engagement, and they can edit it from there. Action steps. There's also a copy function for the action steps. Okay, let me see if I can make it a little bigger for you, Sherry, for all of us. All right. So if at the action step level, you can do a copy there as well. And they can select from which district, from the district or other buildings, and it can be their own even, what plan they want to select their action step from. And then they can select from what goal they want to select it from, and then it'll pull over all the strategies that are with that goal, and they can select from which strategy they want to copy this to, and they can copy it then over. So then if we go back up to, and I believe It was special populations. And I believe I copied it into here. You can see now that that action step is there. So that's an option that is available. One of the things that we're working on is having it go the other direction too, so that you can copy to, but we want to be able to copy from as well. So that if we want to be able to copy this action step from the building wants to copy it from the district instead of the district copying it to the building, then the building would be able to do that. And that's the next step in the planning tool as far as upgrades. And we hope to have that. It's probably not going to be available for our cohort ones, but it is something that may be available when cohorts 2 and 3. I think they're going to be working on it in February or March with the IT team. So are there any questions about action steps or banks or the copy function? So if they, let's say we have a cohort 2 or 3 district, and they want to be able to copy from last year's, they literally could go back to FY21 and they could copy some of their strategies and action steps from the previous year's plan over to the FY22. They would have that ability. Okay. Are there any questions about action steps or plans? Great. All right, so in the document library, I've already added several items. So the resources for the planning tool will be similar to where we house them this year, as well as they will be available on the web page, many of them. Oh, I'm in a QA. I need to get out of there. Scared me for a minute. Thought I lost everything. If you just go to CCIP, you're going to see underneath, there's going to actually just be, we're trying to make this really much more simpler. If we put things by year, that people will know that that's the current stuff that's really, you know, to use for that year. So if they go into FY22 planning tool resources, you can see now the school labels flowchart is there. We've updated the glossary, the one plan and the one needs assessment is all in one glossary. The link to the FAQ is here. This is located on the Ed Steps page, but there are question and answers here. And this also explains, you know, how to identify your priority needs, okay? How do I find, you know, what happens if I identify multiple priorities? So all of that is here in the FAQs for Ed Steps. If we go back, we also have the one needs assessment structure, which I think has been very helpful for districts and buildings to have, because they can see underneath the overarching improvement areas how is the needs assessment broken down into what are then the priority needs or the subsections underneath the overarching improvement areas, or what are the titles that would become the priority needs. So, for example, you had a question earlier about a district that wanted to only have one goal and they wanted it to be like a systemic goal. They could go here and look to see which one of these would be the best area for us to go to really kind of start developing or building on that that priority need for our systemic goal. Even though we've already said English language arts and math and maybe school climate and culture, that yes, they are a priority. Which one is going to be best to be our overarching goal to meet all of those? They can look at this and use it. So those resources are going to be available. And now what I want to do now is really start going into the review process. And we'll be providing you with some documents that you can start using now to help prepare districts for the one plan. And these will be emailed to you, as well as the guide. I am also in the document library too, so you'll be able to get access to it there. I just have to remember where I put everything. Okay, so this document, and let me make it bigger for everyone. I can share with you so that you can see for your districts. So let's look at, for example, Cleveland. Which offices are going to be reviewing Cleveland's plan this year? And so as you scroll across, we can see that the Office of Federal Programs, the Office of Approaches to Teaching, and the Office of Learning and Assessments, Learning and Instruction. What is that office? We need to make that a little bit broader so that that's available. The Office of Improvement, that which would be an Innovations, and the Office of Intense Supports, as well as the Office of Early Learning. The urban team will be looking at them, and the gifted team, and the alternate assessment team. So this is integrated student supports, and intense is here. Cleveland has a lot of offices looking at theirs. If we go to another, which is going to be, you know, for example, Cloverleaf Local, you can see that they're only going to have the Office of Federal Programs, and then OII and OISS reviewing their plans. So they only have 3 offices that are looking at the plans. We have done a analysis to see how many districts only have the Office of Federal Programs reviewing their plan. And out of the 350 districts that are in cohort 1, 153 of them only have the Office of Federal Programs actually reviewing their plan. And then another, I think it was like another 147 had only 2 offices reviewing their plan, Office of Federal Programs and one other office. We only had 14 districts out of the 350 that have 5 or more offices reviewing their plans. And those districts would go into what we are calling our collaborative review process, which means that the offices are going to be reviewing the plans together. They'll do the review at their office to get their notes on how this plan meets that criteria of that office. And then they'll meet as a team across offices to really do a final review of the plan and enter a history log note. That's going to help the districts that have many offices looking at their plan, so that don't have too many history log notes to try to sort through and figure out and consider. So this is going to be available, and I'll send this to you to Elizabeth to send out to you in an email today, so that you can start looking at your districts that you're serving, and you can see exactly which offices are going to be reviewing their plan, and then looking at the review guide, which I'm going to show you now, and also share with you today about what are the criteria then that those different offices will be looking for. I see that Chun was in here, so she may have been able to kill 2 birds with one stone for us too this morning. All right. Let's make this a lot bigger. So the first part of the guide really talks about navigation and how to get into the plan, what the timelines are, explains the review process, recommendations, all of that. Then the second part of the guide actually goes into the office review checklist, which then has from each office what their criteria is and what they're looking for. So I'm going to scroll through several of the pages because I don't think you need a lot of these. You already know how to get into it. We did add something here, and I do want to share this with you. The plan review status page we were hoping to be able to get it to where it would only pull in just those offices that were reviewing the plans. However, that's not going to be, the system, we weren't able to get that in. It just takes too many IT hours to be able to rewrite the system to do what we want. We are going to have a link on this page to that Excel file that I just showed you will be right here in the planning tool on the page for districts then to go and look as well. And we've added now a definition to what each of these different items mean in the plan. If the plan meets the criteria, what does that mean? That means that they've met the criteria from all the offices that have reviewed their plan and that it has been approved as written. There's no changes at all that are being asked of. We do have a Tableau report that we can create. However, in that Excel file, Sherry, for which consultants are serving which districts, the consultants that are assigned to review those districts is that district's consultant. So, and then if you go into the address book, you can get the contact number and the email for those consultants in the CCIP. Okay. All right, so the next one is it's been reviewed and they have recommendations suggested. That just means that an office has reviewed it and they have a recommendation. It's a recommendation for the district to consider or to look at, and it could be a recommendation for the future. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to go in and put it in their plan or change their plan based on the recommendation. We like to think of it as a seed that has been planted. Whether it'll grow or not is up to the district and the type of soil it was planted in, but it's a recommendation. And especially for some of our offices who don't really get a lot of an opportunity to work with districts, such as the approaches to teaching and the Office of Instruction and Learning. This really gives them an opportunity to see what are the things that are going on in the district, and because of their knowledge and their contact knowledge or their pedagogical knowledge, they may be able to provide a little bit, some support and help to those districts that normally they don't have that kind of contact with. And they can maybe steer them in a direction that might be a little bit more a better practice or evidence-based or, a better program even than what they're currently using, or more current program. So the next item is the plan needs to address a criteria. So an office would, if they are missing a criteria that is a requirement by law, then they will put in an item that they need to meet this criteria so that we can approve their plan. So now last year with the pilots, we approved it the first time, but the expectation was that they addressed it before they submitted their plan again when we did our reallocations or shored up some of the allocations in September. This year, the expectation is that they need to meet those criteria so that before we can approve the plan. So if they get a note or a history log note from the Office of Improvements and Innovations that asks them, what are you doing in this plan to support your one priority building? The expectation would be that they would go back in, and those specific strategies or action steps that are going to be utilized in those buildings, they're going to identify that in the plan. Whether they add a statement in that strategy description itself, or an action step that's already in the plan, and they specifically talk about in this building, this is what we're going to do, or they may actually add a new strategy or an action step specifically for that building. So if it says the plan's not been reviewed, it just means simply what it means. The office has not reviewed the plan yet. Or plan review in progress. It means the office has started, but they're still working on reviewing it. And then NA means that that office isn't going to be reviewing the plan. So hopefully this will help this year also. Somebody was asking where to find the address book. That's in here. It shows you where the address book is here. You can get on here. It'll show you the federal programs contact for the consolidated application. And if you click on their name, it will actually open up and provide you phone number and email address. While we are working from home, the best form of communication right now is email, at least for initial communication to get a hold of the consultants. All right, I'm going to get down here because I want to make sure we have time for this. So, the checklist will also be in the guide that I just showed you, and that link for that checklist will be here. I think Jean was just finishing up on it. I need to add it to a website so that I can get a link for it, and then we'll put it in there. So for each of the offices, it will tell you exactly who are they going to be reviewing, who will be the reviewers for this office, and it then gives the specific criteria or the rubric that they use to review for their plan. So for example, they're looking here, is it comprehensive? Does it address not only academic needs, but it also addresses school climate and culture needs, or well-rounded students, or the whole child? Okay. So here's one from the office that has approaches to teaching and learning. So and it specifically says these are the districts who they're going to review this year for literacy. So these are districts that have to have a literacy plan in that office. Tells you who's reviewing it and the criteria that they're looking for. Is it aligning to their reading plan that they've already submitted to this office? Office of Educator Effectiveness. They're going to review those districts who their equity score is not very well. And the equity plan that they submitted, they're going to review to see if they're addressing equity within their plan then, if they have equity on their report card. The Office of Exceptional Children has within it really 3 different offices. You have really 4. You have disproportionality, which is one office within that office that will be looking, if the district has disproportionality, they're going to be reviewing their plan. I think there's only 2 districts in this year's list of 300 that are going to be reviewed for disproportionality. If they're part of the urban league, of course, that was a different item up there, they're going to be reviewing the plan. If they have gifted in their on one of their labels as a watch, then the gifted office will be reviewing their plan. And then, of course, if they have alternate assessments, then they would get a review from that office. So hopefully, some of the offices have lists that really are quite long and very extensive, and other offices, such as early learning, has a very simple criteria that they're looking for. And they're really just looking to see, are they addressing preschool anywhere in their plan? Okay. So this is the guide that I'm going to provide to you. You'll be able to read it, look at it, go through. If you have any questions, certainly you know how to reach me or Rachel or Chun. The Office of School Sponsorship is the community school office for those charter schools that have fallen underneath Ohio Department of Ed sponsorship. So they actually do review those plans of those charter schools. And then the Office of Federal Program, this is very similar to what we have in our checklist of what our consultants then look for as they're reviewing the plan. They don't do a lot of in-depth content review, but they are looking to see, does it have all the required components in the plan? Do they have a SMART goal? Do they have a student measure, an adult measure that's, you know, is it 3 to 5 goals or 3 to 5 strategies per goal, which is recommended? So this will give you, and they're the final approvers of the plan. So, are there any questions on the guidebook? I think this will be very helpful for everyone this year as you're working forward with this. So the last thing that I really want to share with you are upcoming training dates. CCIP note just went out this week about the one plan, its release date and trainings. It's CCIP note number 461. And all the training dates and how to register for those for the districts is in the CCIP note. So for cohort ones, we have a training on February the 4th, and then a second training that is going to be February the 24th for districts and buildings. For those districts that are in cohorts 2 and 3, we have those trainings that will begin in March. And the first one will be March 25th. And then April the 8th and May the 6th. They do need to go on to STARS to register for those trainings. What I do recommend for those of you that are SSTs, those trainings cap at like 300. We have, you know, about 350 districts that are in cohort 1. If you're working with the district, I do recommend that maybe if you could log in, one person actually schedules for the training, and then you meet as a team and you review, you attend the training together. That way you could actually have a team in the room together working as you're going through the training and you're learning, and you can discuss for that district. And it's going to allow 5 people then to be in the training, but it's only taking up 1 seat. So if you have any situation where that's a possibility, especially if it's a district that's already back in, is already attending full time, and for your own, you're not concerned with your own health because you've had, you know, you have things like I have the antibodies now. I know I've been around it enough between my parents and that I have the antibodies in my system, so I'm not worried about getting it or giving it to anyone. So you can think about that too as an option of being able to, especially some of your districts that you provide, you know, a lot of support to, seeing if they want to attend one of those trainings and be together for it. So I'm going to open it up now for questions. Any other questions that anyone else has? And we'll see. And so this is all that I have today to present to you. I will probably be at your next open office hours that you have with Brian. And of course, for the directors, I'll be at your next directors meeting too, to be able to give you any type of updates. One thing that I do hope to be able to show is in the CCIP where the districts are going to actually be signing off on that, on the applications when they submit it, the district superintendents. So the trainings will be recorded, yes. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or turn on your mic.
Diane, that first training on February 4th, it will be recorded. How soon will that recording be available after that training? Do you know?
It's usually available like by the next day.
Okay.
I know sometimes Candace has to go and do some of her magic that she does with these things. Right. And then we're able to post those and get those posted so that people, and they will be available, you know, in that doc library. I think, Scott, do you know, are we putting those some of those trainings also on the webpage links?
Yes, we'll put them on the webpage and probably embed them in some type of communication. The different segments will be separated out to help districts and SSTs.
Perfect. So it's not like you only get the link if you registered. It will be open access and easy to find them. Thank you, Diane. I'm just running into so many conflicts on my calendar now, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I am too.
We need to clone you, Diane.
I think all of us need cloned.
Hey, Diane, it looks like I missed one question from the chat. So since we're in the Q&A, I'll just ask it. It looks like Lori asked, pilot districts wishing to revise a fiscal year 21 plan, do they need to edit in the one needs assessment and resend to the planning tool in order to update?
It depends on what they're updating. If they only want to update a strategy or an action step, they can go in and edit it right in the one plan. But if they're wanting to actually do a new priority, a new goal, then they'll have to go back into the one needs assessment and do those questions around that, that topic of their goal that they want to do, and then send that over to the CCIP, and it'll go to the FY21 plan. Any other questions? I don't believe I've answered everybody's questions. First, maybe right now it's just we don't know what all the questions are going to be until we really start getting in there and working with the districts. So I will say, I don't know who has Newton Falls, but I was actually, we were using them last night in our, when we were working on the reports and looking at the reports. And they are actually, they have done all their building needs assessments first, and have actually now just started doing their district needs assessments. So they've actually have done it in the recommended process that we recommend. And it was exciting then to go in and look at the reports that we were able to get off of the one needs assessment to show the priority needs and the improvement areas in which buildings had selected these priority needs. It was very helpful. So I don't know who's working with them, but they looked good. What they have done so far looked really good. They haven't sent it to the CCIP yet, but I do want to remind you of one other thing. The CCIP does not open up until next week or February the 1st. So right now you can't send the needs assessment. Well, you can send it, but it's not going to go anywhere. So until they open it up with all of the updates, it'll sit there. And then once we open up the CCIP, which we will send out a notice letting everyone know that it's opened, they can go in and then push their needs assessment to the CCIP and begin working on their plans. So the registration is, they're already in the stars for the one plan. So you can go in now and register for that. No, we do not do a rollover now into FYCCIP. There is no rollover function now. It's been disabled. So it's actually going to force everyone, cohorts 1, 2, and 3, to actually write a new plan this year. Now they can go back in the previous year's plan and do a copy function, especially if they have a strategy that's still relevant for them. But as far as being able to just roll over their plans, that's not a functionality that's available any longer. You'll also notice that when you go into the one plan, there's not going to be a needs assessment link. The needs assessment is embedded right in with their goals and strategies. And the one needs assessment is the tool that they use to develop their needs assessment. So they don't have to go into the needs assessment link in the plan now to select to do anything. It's already been done when they come over to the one plan. Yes. So we do have for new community schools, and I think we have about, I think there's 11 this year, brand new community schools who just started this year. We do have a different process for those. And we started our training with the brand new community schools this week. For this year, they will not be going into the one needs assessment or the one plan to do a plan. They will be addressing those LEA required components in a plan that they're working with their federal programs consultant on. So they won't really start the process for a plan until next year. In the middle of the year, they'll go in and start doing a needs assessment. Yes, we've had that in our training already. And I think it was already in 2 of the notes that went out to cohort 1 and cohorts 2 and 3, that there is no copy function any longer with the plan. So if they're reading their notes, their CCIP notes, they'll know. If they're not reading their notes or attending training, they're going to be surprised. They can. It might be helpful for them. There is going to be a separate training, and that training is today that Andrea is doing with the DDs and the ESCs. But certainly they're welcome. They are in cohorts. They're assigned to cohorts just as every other district. So they're getting that information about the one plan training as well as everyone else.
Diane, can I ask your input on what, as I'm working with districts and looking at specific questions, there's one under curriculum instruction and assessment under the subsection of teaching and instruction. It is at the building level. It is a question that asks, how does the district monitor effective instructional strategies and methods to assure strong academic learning programs. And the buildings really want to challenge me on this, that it's a typo and that they want to answer it from their building lens. Like, help me with getting them to speak to really understanding that, no, the question really is asking them how the district does monitor that.
Yeah, because the district, we're wanting to know how informed is your district,
right?
And how much support is your district providing to your building to help you?
Right.
I found that if they love to tattle on the district.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I've tried the route of like, so in supporting you with professional development. So am I on the right track if I'm
You are
coaching
on
them
the right
from that
track.
lens? Okay, good.
Mhm.
I just wanted
But
some.
do they feel as if the leadership in the district really knows what's going on in the buildings?
Not always, and I think
Mm-hmm.
they and so that's why I feel like they think that there's a typo in that question, and they really that's sort of the argument they want to take with me, and they want to silo themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to make that a discussion about their building, and well, this is what we do and this is what we do, and I get that, and I say, but remember, with this model, we want to align to the district, and we need to let the district know what supports you need to improve the instruction and the academic learning programs that you need to improve the quality of instruction, and how the time that you need here to help support you with areas that that you have struggles with, and where you feel you have barriers. What can the district do to help remove some of those barriers? So let's think about maybe where you feel you need some professional learning, and that's kind of where I've taken that with them. But I just want to make sure that I'm interpreting that correctly as well, and I'm kind of coaching them in the right direction with that question.
You
And
are.
then, okay, good. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, 9, because then the next one they usually have to do is 9, and 9 has district/building, and
Mm-hmm.
then they can focus in on their building, and then they're really good at rolling from there. But I really try to, it's hard to keep them focused on, no, they really want you to talk about if your district is monitoring effectively what's going on as a whole with the instructional strategies. Are you getting that district level support from, as providing instructional direction for you and support? And so, okay, thank you. I don't want to monopolize.
You're kind of like, they're the feeders to the district. So what the district, whatever, labels or report card or, community relationships that the district have, the sources often are from the building level. So they're the feeders to that district overall image and everything else. So
we're still
understand that piece too.
Yeah, we're still trying to do kind of that mega mind shift in some of our districts to reverse that top down leadership, that old traditional, and like you said, really trying to get the buildings some confidence and letting them know that, like you said, they're closest to the kiddos. We need to start with their thoughts and their information first, and kind of get some things going in the reverse direction instead of that top down direction. So just continuing to try to support that and work through that. Thank you, Diane.
Would it be better if they answered number 9 first and then they got the district question, you think?
Yeah, and I tried that too. And the second time I went through that, and it helped.
So maybe that's something for us to keep in mind. We may want to reorganize the way the question is. Next year.
Yep. Thank you.
To help with the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Okay. Well, it's 11 o'clock. If you have questions, I'll hang on here for a little bit longer. But please thank you for coming. I hope this was helpful. I will send out that guide and a spreadsheet to Elizabeth so she can email it to you today, and we'll be posting it in the CCIP doc library as well. So if you can't find the email next week, you know that it's also located there for you. And I want to thank you, Rachel, for all your help today, and for everyone from federal programs who also logged on just to also give support to everything that we're working on today.